Hafa day and good morning, everyone. Welcome to the 2022 Legislative Forum hosted by the Guam Young Professionals, a committee of the Guam Chamber of Commerce. My name is Charlie Onadera, your Be Influential Subcommittee Chair, and I am your host today. I would like to thank everyone for joining us today, especially our incumbent senators and our new Republican senatorial candidates. For making time to be with us. We're going to get this forum started. So please allow me to introduce you to today's moderator, Ione Lagas.
Alrighty, good morning, everyone. Thanks, Charlie, for the short introduction. I will just go over today's meeting format and just some quick breakdown of the forum in terms of how we're going to run this event, okay? So again, my name is Ione, in case you need to call on me at any time. Thank you again for joining us to our senatorial hopefuls and also to today's guests. So today's forum will provide Republican senatorial candidates the opportunity to share their positions on pre-developed topics and questions with the GYP membership and guests. The meeting will begin with a 2-minute introduction by each of the candidates based on the order from the lottery draw that Charlie mentioned earlier. And after the introductions, each candidate will have 1 minute and 30 seconds to field a response to the question when called upon. Charlie also mentioned that Cam Lorenzo, please find him on your screen. He will be in charge of the timekeeping for today, so he'll have different cues up to let you guys know when to wrap it up, when to move forward. Okay, so let's begin with our introductions. I'd like to first start with Bishra Mendiola.
Hafa day, good morning. Good morning. Thank you so much for hosting this event. I'm very happy to be here. Unfortunately, you cannot see me. I have a problem with the hardware. First, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I was born and raised in Bulgaria. I relocated to Guam in 1999 to work, and that's how I met my husband of 23 years, Mr. Decius Mendiola. For a very long time, I've been involved in tourism and retail industry, and currently, my husband and I own our very small business. And as a small business owner, I do believe that I can bring into the table knowledge and experience in certain issues that are currently on the table for our small businesses. The reason why I wanted to run in this election season is very simple. I want to make Guam a better place to live in, even better place to work. And actually, I had a very sweet conversation with my 6-year-old yesterday about that, and it kind of dawned on me that that's probably the essence of why everyone should be running for office. I do have fresh ideas already, started working even without any guarantee that I'm going to get into office. I've been reviewing past legislation that I would like to introduce or reintroduce, and as well as fresh ideas that I think we need to bring into the small business, particularly the small to mid-sized businesses here, to remove some red tapes that are in existence and provide financial incentives for the people, also provide faster permitting, expand some laws on home manufacturing, also development of farming and agriculture is a big topic in my platform. And that would be in an essence about me, and thank you again for hosting us here.
Thank you, Bishra. All right, I'd like to call upon Ms.
Can
Shirley.
I don't want to mess it up. Can you make that window small, because I can't see the time? I put us on off the camera, but can you get rid of coming down, because I can't see the timekeeper.
Just a second.
Unlock it.
So you're gonna click on that,
No,
and then you're gonna minimize that, because you have to click on that, show your webcam first,
okay,
and then minimize it,
okay,
and then it'll drop.
Just stand in the corner in case I mess anything up.
Alrighty, let's go ahead and move forward. Our next candidate, we have Shirley Samabini Young for your introduction.
Good morning. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
No,
okay, great. Good morning. My formal name is Shirley Mabini Young, but everybody calls me Sam. I have been a strong advocate for workforce development initiatives, not only in Guam, but nationally. I received my doctorate and my MED from the University of Minnesota in work and human resource education. And currently I am a postdoc research fellow in post-secondary career tech education research. And I've been working with the University of Alabama and North Carolina State University, but I'm back here in Guam and deciding that it's time for me to turn.
If this is the screen, then that's not a problem. The timekeeper's holding up the thing.
This is Cam's.
Yes.
Sorry, I hear someone talking.
Yes.
Anyways, I've had various leadership roles in the public and private sector. Most recently, I was the director of Guam Department of Labor. I was also the vice president of Pacific Islands University. I've been an adjunct associate professor with the University of Maryland Global College, an associate dean at Guam Community College. I was the acting director at Guam Public Library System and the general manager of what used to be KGTF, and I helped rebrand that to PBS Guam. While I was living in the States, I was a business loan officer for Bank One Arizona, an executive accountant for United Way, and I was also working for an engineering firm in Minnesota. As you may know, I was a senator in the 31st Guam Legislature. I was focused on workforce development. Today, I've been a business consultant, helping coach youth and adults in figuring out what they want to be when they grow up. And I've also been active in the community. And as far as my platform, I continue to work and focus on preparing our workforce, training and development. And the other areas that I would like to continue working on is accountability in the community. And so I'm looking at innovative housing options for our individuals, aggressive drug enforcement, and finally, smaller and smarter government, and looking for more efficiency and effectiveness in our GovGuam departments and workers, as well as a part-time legislature that will work for Guam. Sidusmasi.
Thank you. All right, our next candidate is Harvey Egna. Please start your introduction.
Good morning, and thank you for hosting this forum today. My name is Harvey Egna. On a personal note, I'm a resident of Jonia. My wife is an elementary school teacher at St. Anthony. I have 3 teenage daughters and 1 younger son. My wife and I are also proud foster parents of a 12-year-old gal that we hope to adopt. Professionally, I recently retired as a financial services and banking executive. I specialized during my career in risk management, compliance, audit, accounting, and budgeting, as well as operational efficiency. Concurrent with my professional career, I served over 20 years in the Coast Guard Reserves, attaining the rank of Fishing captain with a specialty in maritime security. My education includes a master's degree in economic history as well as an MBA in accounting. My platform includes a number of different things I'd like to do. Most important are dealing with the finances and taxation structure of GovGuam, as well as the crime problem that seems to be on our island, particularly the sex crimes that horrified to read about every morning in our newspaper. Thank you.
Thank you, Harvey. I'd like to call on Joanne Brown, Senator.
Day and good morning. Yes, my name is Joanne Brown. I'm currently serving my 7th term in the Guam Legislature. Just to give you my background, I received my undergraduate degree from the University of Guam in political science. I also hold a master's degree in political science from the University of Hawaii at Manoa. I served as staff assistant to the former Governor Joseph Atta, then went on to serve as the deputy administrator for Guam EPA. At the same time, I was also an adjunct professor of political science at the University of Guam. After that, I ran for the Guam Legislature. I served 6 consecutive terms from 1995 to 2006. I stepped down from that position, and then I went back to the University of Guam and worked with the College of Natural and Applied Sciences as the Assistant Director for Soil and Water Conservation. And then when Governor Calvo was elected to office, he asked me to come on board and assist him and be a member of his cabinet. And so I served as Director of Department of Public Works and went on to serve for 6 years as the General Manager for the Port Authority of Guam. And then 2 years ago, I was very dissatisfied with the leadership direction in the legislature and the administration. And that's actually what motivated me to run again for this current legislature, the 36th Guam legislature that I'm serving in, and certainly look forward to engaging with you this morning. And thank you very much for the invitation.
Thank you, Senator Brown. Let's go ahead and move on to candidate Joaquin Ken Leon Guerrero.
My name is Joaquin Leon Guerrero, better known as Ken Leon Guerrero. And for the past 15 years, I've been a community advocate standing up for the people of Guam before 3 different administrations at Adelup, 5 different legislatures. I've testified hundreds of times before the legislature, Adelup, and numerous boards and commissions on issues that were very important to the public. Over this time, I've had a lot of experience seeing how the government works more for the government and not so much for the people of Guam as we would hope, as we would like. And for the past 6 years, I've been trying to encourage younger people to run for office, new people to run for office, and haven't had a lot of luck doing so. So that's why I'm running for office, because I'm hoping to take advantage of the experience I have gained working for the people as a community advocate in the hearing rooms and take it into the senatorial chamber and represent the same level of interest. But I'm not just waiting till I get in. As you know, I'm also running a voter initiative process right now that kicks off this Saturday. So whether I get into the legislature or not, I continue to work for the people of Guam, trying to make government better for the people and more responsive to the people. And I look forward to getting on the campaign trail with these people, helping get a Republican majority in the legislature.
All right, thank you so much, Ken. Let's go ahead and move on to Senator Tello Taitigui.
Today, and thank you so much for having this forum today, getting to know those who are behind the scenes today to get to know us and who we are. Again, my name is Tello Taitigui. I'm originally from the beautiful village of Inalahan, a Southern woman at heart, but now currently residing in the village of Tumuning. I began my career in the private sector for many years. I ended up opening up my own business, and at the same time I opened up a second business, and after that I ended up becoming the director of the Women's Bureau, going into government. Then I became a senator in the 30th Guam Legislature. After that, I served under the Governor Calvo's administration as a liaison. I oversaw the external affairs of the government, including mayors, council generals, and most especially the legislature. I then became the deputy general manager of the Guam Visitors Bureau. And after that, I came back into the legislature in the 35th Guam Legislature. And then now I'm currently sitting in the 36th Guam Legislature and running for re-election. And I believe we need more people in the legislature who's not afraid to ask the hard questions, who's a stickler when it comes to transparency and accountability. I've never been one to be able to call out individuals who've lost the people's trust. And I'm here today humbly asking for your support to continue my work in the legislature. Thank you, and Sijus Masi.
Thank you, Senator Tello. I'd like to call on Senator Christopher Dueñas for your introduction. Senator Chris, you are on mute. Let me see if I can unmute you. Okay, there we go. Please go ahead. Yes.
I apologize. I believe that I was doing some technical stuff and I might have stepped on someone earlier, and so I was muted, but I'm glad to be here now. Hafaday, I'm Chris Dueñas, and together with my wife, my beautiful wife, Angelica Arreola Dueñas, we have 4 children. My youngest member of our family is our dog, Ace. She's my best friend. You know, I spent my early days, I'm a graduate of John F. Kennedy High School. I spent my early days after graduation spending a lot of time on the ocean, fishing, doing other commercial ventures on the water. And I fell in love so much with the ocean that I went to Houston Marine School. I got a 100-ton near coastal license, certified also as a submersible pilot. And, you know, I opened my own small business, charter fishing, and I did that for 3 years, as well as eventually continuing to work in the maritime industry, different commercial ventures. Much like Senator Brown, you know, later on in my life, after 16 years of private service, I became very frustrated with a lot of the ways government was working, and my experiences as a small business owner, and also working for bigger businesses, you know, that also had the same struggles in terms of government services and efficiencies. So I ran for the legislature. I was unsuccessful, and fortunately, I served under the Camacho administration as Director of Youth Affairs. Beyond that, I went on to be Director of Department of Land Management under the Camacho administration. And then I served on the 31st and 32nd Guam Legislature. And then I worked as a liaison with the governor, under Governor Cabo, and as well to the legislature, and as well as Guam Housing as the president of Guam Housing Corporation. I'm currently serving in the 36th Guam Legislature, and I believe the hallmark of what we've been doing is really holding the government accountable, particularly the administration, the executive branch, and I want to continue that work. As we go forward, I'll be sharing other plans for this term. So thank you, GYP. I appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you. Alrighty, I'd like to move on to, last but not least, Jesse Lujan.
Oh, sorry, I thought it was the last one. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, you know, as I watched the pandemic devastate our tourism industry and the private sector, I was saddened and concerned, and felt too many vital issues were left unattended. And I thought more needed to be done. So I made the suggestions and brought up policy issues for the Guam Visitors Bureau. But I realized to help make more of a real impact, I needed to have a real voice. So I decided to seek a seat in the 37th Guam Legislature. You know, with inflation at all-time high and our tourism industry long way off from recovery and the worsening crime problem, you know, the people of Guam are facing very challenging time in uncharted territory. What we need are realistic plans to navigate this island through these issues, and effective measures need to be brought to improve economic conditions. We also need to keep our people employed, and we need to make sure that local businesses have continued financial support until tourism recovers. The governor should and must provide another round of the ELITE program funding, since it may be a year or so before we get back to pre-pandemic tourism arrival numbers. We have to keep businesses open so we have a competitive and viable tourism destination. Over 1,000 Guam businesses have applied and needed the LEAP funding, and they will need more to survive. Keeping businesses open and people employed are two real ways to help battle the hardships that we face. I have constantly and repeatedly suggested to the governor to meet with the Guam Chamber of Commerce to review all taxes and government services to see what can be temporarily suspended or reduced as we wait for the tourism industry to recover. The more the government can lower fees and taxes, the more money individuals and businesses have to spend on vital expenses. And the government should look at to provide this temporary relief whenever possible. I'm a father of 3. I'm married to Mary Ann Suyal Lujan, who is currently a vice mayor in Iloilo. We have a 10-year-old daughter. I'm a grandfather of 5.
Thank you, Jesse. I think that wraps up the introductions for everyone. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit about yourselves and your campaign initiatives. So let's get into the meat of the forum, and that will be the questions. Again, it will be based on a lottery order. I will ask the question. You will have 1 minute and 30 seconds to field the response, and Cam will be showing you the cues so that you know when to wrap it up. Alrighty? So question number 1. Today, voters are growing increasingly concerned with the rising cost of living. More families have expressed that they are fast approaching the point where they can no longer afford to reside in Guam. What specific plans do you have to directly address their concerns and support struggling residents? And that question will be for Bistra Mendiola.
Thank you for that question. This is probably the most pressing issue today for our people of Guam. The question is, what does comprise a cost of living? There's 2 components to that. Number 1, the living wages they're being paid, and number 2, the cost of goods. Addressing the cost of goods, there are short-term and long-term things that we can do. On the short term, we can always lower some taxes, starting with the BPT tax. We can exclude certain vital commodities from BPT tax, such as medicine, gas, and food. Then number two, the long-term solution to me personally, that would be to fight for the Jones Act waiver. We need to gather together with Congress, with our neighboring territories to fight and make sure that we are excluded, because this is one of the major components of our cost of goods here. Also, the paying wages right now, they're primarily tied to the service industry. We need to fill up higher paying jobs by funding training programs and relocate those displaced workers to a better paying job. So that, I think, would be the two major issues we can tackle in legislature.
Thank you, Bistra. Alrighty, let's go ahead and move on to question number 2. Privatization, outsourcing, and/or public-private partnerships are terms most people do not understand how they are implemented. If elected, would you support any of these options for government services or autonomous agencies? And if so, which entity or entities would you pursue? And please explain. This will be for Ken Leon Guerrero. Oh.
Okay, to start with, we hear a lot of politicians talk about diversifying the economy and creating more opportunities. But the challenge that we face is, what type of diversification are we going to do to stimulate our economy? The biggest challenge we have here is our infrastructure is crap. Our roads are crap. We don't have enough warehouse space or commercial space or even manufacturing space to attract anybody that would create a significant impact in our job market. The second challenge that we have is we have a tax structure on this island that is not business friendly. So if we ever have any hope of diversifying our economy and providing jobs for the 3,000 students that graduate every year, only to find 1,000 low-wage service sector jobs, we're going to have to do a better job rethinking a plan for the future of the economy of this island.
Thank you, Ken. I'd like to also ask if Harvey Egna, would you like to provide a response for this question, please?
For which particular part of the question?
The entity or entities you would pursue regarding privatization, outsourcing, and/or public-private partnerships.
I would like to look for partnerships or privatization, particularly with regard to customs and tax collection. We seem to have obviously a problem with drugs coming to our island, and I've often thought that we might want to partner more with our federal customs partners to try to seal up that sieve that we have probably coming in through the port to try to stop the meth coming into our island. Also with regard to tax collections. I've read about things like cigarette taxes that go uncollected, and I'm not sure that we have the resources in rev and tax to collect that revenue. I think there's a lot of taxes that go uncollected because we don't have the resources or the wherewithal to go about collecting those taxes. So why not partner up with a private entity that specializes in that type of collection to increase our revenue from tax collection?
Thank you, Harvey. Alrighty, we can go ahead and move on to the next question, number 3. Would you support converting the business privilege tax to a sales tax? And if so, what would be your timelines to accomplish this goal? And this question will be for Shirley, Sam Abini Young, and Jesse Lujan. Shirley, you can go ahead and go first.
Thank you. I believe a lot of this is being seen already as far as the BPT being, or the tax being collected, already being transferred over to the consumers as sales tax. So as far as when I would act on this, that would be immediately. We do need to support our businesses regarding, because of the impact of the existing sales tax level, so that they can help reduce the expenses, which obviously transfers over to the consumers, so that they can adjust their prices. Again, this goes back to the question above previously as far as the cost of living. Also, by reducing that, I believe that would also help improve employee benefits, bring that back, which our employees are needing, and also increase opportunities for pay raises. So the answer, in essence, is yes, immediately. Thank you.
Thank you, Shirley. Jesse Lujan.
Sorry, I was muted there. Yeah, thank you very much. Oh, absolutely. I'm in favor of definitely converting the BPT to the sales tax, and we should absolutely do that immediately. But as I said in my opening statement, I said I've been encouraging the governor to meet with the chamber to be able to look at what taxes and fees that can be temporarily suspended or rolled back immediately. So absolutely, let's do it now. But not only converting that, but immediately come together and see what we can roll back and can suspend immediately so our businesses can thrive.
Thank you, Jesse. And thank you, Shirley. Alrighty, moving on to the next question. Do you support the rollback of the BPT to 4%? If so, how will you ensure government services are not negatively impacted? And this question goes out to Senator Tello and Senator Joanne. We can start with Senator Tello.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Yes, I do. I do support the rollback. I've been a part of legislation actually that has exempted 2% of the BPT to small businesses, which actually make up 90% of our businesses on Guam. Currently, Guam has been seeing a surplus even before the pandemic, which I feel we can afford to roll back the BPT back to 4% because of this. So yes, I do support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Brown, would you like to also provide a response?
I've also taken a position also in this legislature to support the rollback of the BPT. As Senator Tello had mentioned, you know, we hear the administration touting the incredible increase of revenue coming into the government of Guam. And one of the things we've seen with this democratic leadership in both the administration and the legislature is the desire to spend and spend and spend some more. And this government has grown substantially. And as a result, at the other end of this process in the last 3.5 years, this government has grown and the burden has become even greater upon our people to continue to support and sustain a government that has an endless need for cash. I think it's important we can still provide critical services. We need to prioritize. I mean, we can't be everything to everyone. I think we need to narrow down the specific services that we want the government of Guam to provide and provide well, and focus our revenue stream with regards to that. We need to do more than simply pass a budget to continue to sustain an ever-growing government that as the years have gone on, and I've been at this for many years, now my 28th year since I first ran for office, I continue to see the government be more disengaged from the public, and the public have less access to actually influencing how their government supports them. So those definitely are areas that I am focused on and want to continue to work on. Thank you.
Thank you, senators. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to question number 5. Here we are. Quality healthcare on island is vital for a healthy economy, and more importantly, it is important for our island residents. What would be your legislative plans and priorities for improving the management and services of the Guam Memorial Hospital? This question will be for Senator Chris Dueñas.
Thank you. You know, I think right now what the legislature has done, and of course the funding source now has shifted given the fact that the way that the taxes are going to be remitted. We passed a law to, you know, provide a funding source to build a new hospital. And that has now structurally changed. So we'll need to go back and appropriate. But while I disagree with the governor's main emphasis on location of the new hospital, I believe a new hospital is definitely so badly and sorely needed. And we need to make sure that the relationship between the legislature and the governor's office is on point with regard to that. You know, I don't think we need to go far down the road to figure out what the business model is. I believe that as far as GRMC, I think that they're operating very well. I think that when you look structurally in terms of their management team, and when you look at the employee base, I think you see a large disparity there. You know, there's a lot of things for the government to do, and there are a lot of opportunities for government employment elsewhere. But we need to make sure first and foremost that our hospital make sure that we employ and have the proper salary base for the medical professionals. And management has to be held accountable for that, because it's the service delivery and the medical professionals that are key. And then, of course, the actual existing of the structure as well, which is currently so dilapidated. So those are the two things I think the next legislature has to absolutely focus on and come together on those issues: medical professionals and a new hospital.
Thank you, Senator Chris. I'd also like to ask if Shirley Samabini Young would like to provide a response for that question as well.
Thank you. Systemic changes is something I believe any organization, in this case GMH, should implement. We need to examine perhaps some of the OPA recommendations that may have already come out that will deal with maybe their more accountability to carry out some of those systemic changes that are needed to improve management and services. Another area that I'm really passionate about is the training maybe of not necessarily the medical staff, but the operations of this public entity, whether it's administrators, the line supervisors, operations, etc. And of course, I would love to see stronger partnerships with other private organizations or maybe even NGOs to tackle some of the improvements, such as maybe infrastructure or innovative solutions. We have a lot of, I think great people in Guam who have ideas about how IT can help improve some of the delivery services. So those are what I would like to see carry out to help improve and support our GMH.
Thank you. Okie dokie, let's go ahead and move on to the next question. And it kind of relates to the first question. So the candidates that will choose to respond, I will let you know. The question is, home ownership remains elusive on Guam due to low inventory, high purchase prices, and rising interest rates. What policy ideas do you have to support residents in purchasing a home? What initiatives would you introduce to support first-time homeowners? I'd like to call on Bistra Mendiola.
As a former realtor, I do understand that there are quite a few problems for first-time homeowners. There are quite a few federal programs that are provided that support for down payment. There is also a loan guarantee here locally for the Chamorro Land Trust landowners. I think primarily we need to resolve the permitting process and possibly create pre-approved building plans that are ready to use and ready to go, because the process itself right now is very cumbersome, particularly for those who want to build on their own land. There are also excess government lands that could be utilized to provide low-income housing projects. We can also incentivize the developers of such projects through tax breaks, as we have been doing. However, recently the H-2B process has been tampered with on federal level, so we are experiencing labor shortage due to that. And again, as I mentioned, a Jones Act waiver will be beneficial for us to ease the material costs. So if we band together again as a government body, governor, congressman, legislature, and through resolution petition the federal government to exclude us, we can certainly ease some of those problems.
Thank you, Bistra. I'd also like to pose that question to Ken Leon Guerra.
That is one of the most critical problems facing our island today, affordable housing. That is the #1 reason why so many of our families are leaving the island before the pandemic: lack of affordable housing. Over the past 20 years, we've increased our population. We've graduated 3,000 people a year from our education factory, and we've built 100 homes a year for the past 20 years. That's why the cost of housing is so high here, and we need to do something radical. And what I propose to do is do something along the lines of what Singapore did. Singapore had a similar problem. Singapore is the same size as Guam, but In one generation, they've taken their population from less than 20% home ownership to over 90% home ownership using innovative government programs to create quality, affordable housing. We need to do the same thing here, because as the price of housing goes up, it drives the cost of everything up and drives more of our family off island. We need to reverse that trend. Affordable housing is critical.
Thank you, Ken. Moving on to question number 7. Okay. To support the growth of new business and the expansion of current business activity, what plans do you have to improve the permitting process and improve the speed in which permit applications as well as plan reviews are proposed and processed? This question is for Senator Joanne and Jesse Lujan. We'll start with Senator Joanne.
You know, I find it ironic because that question really is something, and having been on both sides of the aisle in the legislature and the administration, that really is an administration operation with regards to permitting and the speed of permitting. You know, I served as director of DPW, you know, and obviously DPW is the main agency ultimately that will validate all the permits, authorizations from different government agencies. And I really have to tell you, you know, the business sector that supported this current administration, it's some from those very people. We hear a lot of complaints about the processing, especially for business trying to get their permits for occupancy for condos, you know, and other buildings, business buildings that they built, and the inefficiencies and the runaround that they get to try to get assistance from government which are intended for that very purpose to provide this service. And I really have to tell you that question for, you know, there's not a way you can legislate the efficiency of government, but one thing I can do that I think we need to address is the accountability of the employees that work in government of Guam. We have a lot of very good people, but try to correct, try to terminate inefficiency in the government, and good luck. The system is so set up that the priority is not the mission. And this is where we need the private sector to be more engaged. Because I have to tell you, coming back after all these years, I've seen a lack of engagement from the private sector participating in public hearings and legislation. Presence really has not been there, and I know because I attend most of these hearings. And I think if the private sector wants a greater voice, the private sector needs to speak up. And I have to tell you, their voice has not been as loud as it used to be. The chamber itself does not have the degree of influence in public policy that it used to. And I think the only way you're going to influence the agenda to see the greater outcome that you want of accountability in the government, including the permitting process, is to be more engaged and demand that accountability and be able to influence the political process that I think the private sector has lost some ground in, certainly in the 16 years since I previously served in the Guam Legislature. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for asking that question. You couldn't have asked me a better question because I'm going through that right now in the permitting process for some of our projects. Let me just say that all permitting should be migrated to online. That process must be developed. It must be streamlined and automated to the maximum extent possible. During the pandemic, you know, government entities throughout the United States have done so. We need to see what can be done successfully and mitigate the permitting process, applications and approvals online so that we can be handled more efficiently and quickly. Our one-stop really is a non-stop process. And again, it's a in order for businesses or people to want to build their homes, again, they have to go through this permitting process. And I can tell you from the start, if you already have your land, it can take anywhere from 6 months to a year plus to be able to even break ground.
Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to the next question. True prosperity only occurs by growing the economy. What actions will you implement to expand further growth in the economy? And this question will be for Shirley Young and Harvey Egna. So we'll start with Shirley.
You know, just recently during the COVID-19 era, I served as a business consultant for businesses that were severely impacted by COVID-19. And one thing that I really that came through to me was how small businesses probably need more support in the actual operations. So training of entrepreneurs, or maybe even training of existing businesses on how to either start or continue improving their business operations is critical, in my opinion. So supporting existing businesses to further grow. The other thing that I believe is critical that we haven't done too too good of a job here in Guam is really assessing the viability of certain industries. And one of the ways to do that is to measure the resources that we do have to introduce new businesses on Guam. And maybe perhaps also finding areas in Guam that will provide the incubation of new industries. So businesses who do go in, who struggle, will have the support necessary, because the resources would be there for them. So that is, by the way, a priority for Guam, growing the economy. Thank you.
Thank you. Harvey?
Thank you. True prosperity only occurs by growing the economy, not by growing GovGuam. Right now, we're growing GovGuam. In a high tax environment, our economy will not thrive. Okay, right now, if we look at what's happening with GovGuam finances, we have millions of dollars, $80, $90 million surpluses every month. GovGuam should not be running those type of surpluses. They should be running down to zero. Okay, that tells me that we're collecting too many taxes, which means our BPT needs to come down. We shouldn't be running those type of overages. Okay, in any economy where businesses are overtaxed, they cannot thrive. Many businesses run on single-digit profit margins, and that 1% can make a very, very big difference as to whether they can expand their businesses into other locations, into other product lines, into hiring more employees. So the first thing we need to do is look at our philosophy. Business does not exist to support GovGuam. GovGuam exists to help our businesses thrive, but we seem to have it reversed in Guam, and we need to change that polarity. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to the next question. What are some areas that you believe can be reduced or eliminated from government control, outsourced, that will not have a bearing on the services the government of Guam currently provides? This question is for Senator Tello and Ken Leon Guerrero.
Thank you. You know, there are quite a bit of services that are provided in the government that all very, very important, some more than others that play an important role. But if anything, I would look at cost-cutting solutions while improving reliable and efficient services.
Come here.
All right, just a second, we will mute.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, muted, okay. So once again, you know, I would look at, you know, cost-cutting solutions for these programs, and while improving the reliability and efficiency of these services that are provided, I would incorporate virtual technology and integration as a couple areas to start with. But many of these programs are very instrumental to the community in service. So it would be more of just that cost-cutting measures to these programs than anything. So it's kind of hard to, you know, eliminate anything that's been put together to assist our community. Like I said, some are more important than others, but they were implemented for a reason. So thank you.
Thank you. Ken?
What we need to do is we need to look at what the mandate of government is. It is to provide for public health, public education, and public safety. Everything beyond that comes onto the table. Look at what happened when we sold Guam Telephone Authority. We got better phone service on island, more reliable phone service. The employees who worked for the telephone company transitioned over to a better retirement system, better quality of life. We need to do the same thing with Guam Power Authority and Guam Water Authority. We need to look at a public-private partnership for Guam Memorial Hospital, because for decades, having a government-run hospital has not provided the best health care for our people of Guam. So that would be another area. Just by selling those utilities and transferring Guam Memorial Hospital over to a public-private partnership where we can still have control but not have the financial obligations would dramatically reduce the cost of government in key areas for residents of Guam and provide better quality services at the same time.
Thank you. All righty, next question. A quality education system is important to our community. With the impending hiring of a new superintendent of education and election of new Board of Education members, please provide specific legislative objectives you would offer to support the Department of Education. Will any of these objectives require the increasing of any taxes for implementation? And this question is for Senator Chris Dueñas and Bistra Mendiola. We'll go ahead and start with Senator Chris.
Thank you for the question. You know, I think when we look around and we see the success under the Camacho administration and the Calvo administration, when schools were actually went to public-private partnerships. You look at all the schools that are currently now, John F. Kennedy, Attica, you go across the list and you go to every single one of those schools. They're clean, the air conditioning is working, they're painted, the sidewalks are water blasted. Kids are coming to a school that is a conducive and ready to learn environment. You look at now the charter schools. I'm understanding that one charter school will just be opening in the next couple of weeks on time. You know, the accountability is there. I think the most important thing, like we've been talking about public-private partnerships, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. I think that it's going to be important going forward that we use the model and the current financing models for the current schools that are very successful and just duplicate that throughout. We can have minimum amount of maintenance and a much smaller maintenance you know, organization within the Department of Education, but it's time for us to get out of the business of structures and maintaining structures. And Department of Education should be there for teaching and learning. The models are there, and I think that's the fastest thing that we can do to make sure our kids have schools that are designed to follow all the points of education and law, the 14 points that Senator Klitsky put in. And to be able to follow that, you have to be able to have all, you know, a school that's running properly. Let's not reinvent the wheel. Let's keep that privatization of schools being instructed.
Thank you. Bistra, your response, please.
I do believe the quality education system brings up the question, do we have quality teachers? Are they certified? And then number two, quality curriculum probably is one of the issues that needs to be examined. As a vocational high school graduate, I do value very much the quality of vocational training that will in long term support our labor force. I do believe that there's a lot of areas that we can prepare high schoolers and teach them the necessary skills to transition into adulthood. There are great programs that are currently in existence through the Economic Development Administration program. That's the program that helped the Trades Academy to start up. So federal grants could be utilized for starting up micro hubs for kids who want to specialize and have a talent in a certain area. So in essence, I do believe that we need to provide more funding for vocational training on island.
Thank you, Bistra. Okie dokie, we can move on to the next question. Considering the importance of small businesses towards our economic base, what are some of your policy ideas to incentivize or grow small business activities on island? This question is for Senator Joanne Brown and Shirley Mania.
I think definitely one. I'm sorry, are you ready to go or no?
Oh, yes. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. I mean, I think one of the things, you know, the government is not the one that can operate a business. I think that we need to provide a good environment that allows businesses to grow and thrive, either small business, larger businesses in our community. And we keep hearing how the government is not business friendly, and the whole idea that the world begins and ends with the government of Guam prevails. rather than recognizing that the strength of our economy actually is supported and invigorated by the private sector. And so I think the government, what we can do, and again, we cannot do and be everything. I think it's a misconception to try to think that by being elected to office, we have some kind of magical power to make the world go round. But I think what we can do is ensure that the government is operating more efficiently, the government's providing more support base, the government's allowing greater opportunity to facilitate permitting areas where it has oversight authority, so that that we can support the private sector. I mean, the private sector can do what it needs to do, but I think it needs a supporting foundation that has not always existed in government, and the ability of the government to be responsive. I mean, you end up getting a lot of promises, you get people put in office, you get the same old, and I think if you want something different, you got to elect leadership that's going to want to see that kind of accountability in government. That's certainly one of the main agendas that I have, certainly coming back into office. I think if we provide a more supportive environment, I think businesses, including small businesses, will thrive in our community.
Thank you.
Could you repeat which question we're addressing?
We are addressing the importance of small businesses towards our economic base. Question number 11. Would you like me to repeat it, or?
Oh, no, that's okay. Thank you. I think I mentioned earlier the importance of assessing what resources are available here in Guam in order to be able to incentivize small business development here in Guam. Seeing what kind of property we may have, infrastructure availability, and our human resource availability to support these new businesses. Here in Guam, certain businesses as well as public entities, like I believe GPA, use measuring tools like work keys, where they can assess the skills of individuals, their literacy, their workplace readiness. And new businesses or new industries, small businesses, need to know whether those resources are available. Another thing that I think that's been missing here in Guam is our ability to be able to assess or track which businesses are able to sustain itself, or closing of businesses. We don't do a good job in analyzing this kind of data, so that we can make better decisions in how we can assist businesses, small businesses. And the other area that I think we need to revisit are the qualifying certificates. How can that program assist in diversifying and enticing and incentivizing small businesses?
Thank you. Alrighty, moving on to the next question. How would you use your role as a policymaker to entice new industries or diversification economic development to Guam? This question is for Senator Chris Dueñas and Harvey Egna. And we need to unmute you, Senator Chris, just a moment. There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you for the question. I think one of the most important things that we've done in this legislature was support GTA and the arrival of the new fiber cables that are coming into Guam. I'm sure the Guam Young Professionals are keeping a close eye on this, because just bringing in those cables and what's going to happen now with that business activity, there's so much more bandwidth, so much more fiber coming into our island, to where we've talked about how the Googles and some of the other larger businesses will be looking at Guam now, just by that capacity. To me, everything is driven by GITA when we talk about this issue. And I think it's so important and timely that we assemble a team that goes out and makes a much stronger presence in Asia, particularly Taiwan, with the instability in Taiwan and the fact that many businesses, particularly in the tech industry, may be looking at relocating in other areas. I really think that's one of the fastest ways Guam can utilize the great geopolitical position that we have to ensure that we bring in businesses that are going to bring in higher paying jobs. They're going to be less in terms of, the land mass needed to do things, and just really for the generation of young professionals coming up to really avail of this, modernization and where the economy is going and how tech is going to play in that. So I think really that's the fastest thing that we can do. And I'm proud to have voted in favor of that bill. And I'm proud of my colleagues who made sure that the people of Guam will get more return on that for Chamorro Land Trust as well.
Thank you. Go ahead, Harvey.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. I think it's a good question. And I'd like to follow on with the points that Senator Chris made. You know, Guam, the benefit of its location on the opposite side of the date line, as well as its high-tech communication capability, would be an excellent location for high-tech call centers. Right now, instead of those calls going to India or the Philippines, or as you know, Senator Chris mentioned, the vulnerability of Taiwan, why not set up those type of operations in Guam? Guam flies the U.S. flag and operates under U.S. laws, and we can put those jobs here in Guam instead of having those calls go outside the United States. We have again the benefit of being on the other side of the date line, so that our folks don't necessarily have to work those those unusual hours. And again, it's a clean type of business. It's not putting smoke into the air or anything into the ocean. So that's something we could leverage alongside the cables that we now have coming into the island, as well as satellite capability and community. I think that's an opportunity for Guam to get into that type of business.
Alrighty, thank you, Senator Chris and Harvey. We can go ahead and move on to the next question. Okay. How do you propose we resolve or improve our workforce development and/or vocational training, not only for the anticipated growth in the military buildup, but also for the island residents to attain more opportunities in the local job market? This question is for Bishra and Shirley. We'll start with Bishra.
As I touched upon the issue, the vocational training is very important. However, I think that the government needs to take a customized approach to launching government initiatives that are related to that. First and foremost, the government needs to work with the private sector and identify the needs of the job market first, and then do custom programs to serve the needs of the growing labor force. As I mentioned, there are programs that are in existence, such as the Economic Development Administration program. Similar initiatives exist, and we need to take a closer look what's available to us on federal levels, resources, and how can we work together with the business community and have an open door policy and see what we can do as a legislature to facilitate a process and provide the necessary funding. Thank you.
Thank you.
This question hits home for me. Labor market information is data that we that are already being collected to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and we need to do a better job in using that data. And unfortunately, many of the information that's collected is a little bit outdated. So with the partnership with businesses, we need to collect that information so it's as current as possible, so that we can make wise decisions as to what programs we should have. We need to work better at educating or training with our teachers and our businesses as far as what programs are out there, what we can build and improve upon. So training of teachers, counselors, support staff, and admin. I'd love to see stronger partnerships between our businesses and our schools like Guam Community College, UOG, Pacific Islands University, Trades Academy. We have Guam Marianas Training Center, New Horizon. They're all out there. A big missing piece that we need to really work on is working with our families so that they also understand what labor demands are out there, so they can work with their students, their young, their family members as to what career opportunities are out there. We need to really support our career tech ed programs that we have on Guam, and I would love to see our businesses open up their doors to provide work-based learning opportunities, more internships, more job shadowing opportunities, and so forth. But in order for that to happen, everybody needs to know what is out there and work together as a system. Thank you.
Thank you, Bishra and Shirley. Go ahead and move on to the next question. Do you support a part-time legislature? Why or why not? Please explain. This is for Jesse Lujan and Senator Tello Tadigui. We'll start with Jesse.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, absolutely. This would allow more people who want to participate to actually participate in the legislature without having to give up their current jobs. it will allow us also to be able to get maybe the brightest, the smartest folks to seek office without, again, having to give up their main livelihood. I think it just works out great. Be able to have a diverse folks within the legislature. This would allow it to happen. Thank you.
All right, Senator Tello.
Well, thank you. You know, I very much respect the comments from my colleague, former Senator Lujan. He's definitely been in the legislature to know what it's like and the work required. But you know, I have to say I'm still not convinced that a part-time legislature, which is essential part of the checks and balances of the government, would be conducive right now. You know, I'm just not convinced at this point. You know, but you know, as I really believe we also run into an unfair balance of representation, because there are not that many jobs out there that would allow their employee to leave work, you know, 1 or 2 times, you know, 1 week or 2 weeks out of a month to be able to leave. So I just believe there would be an unfair imbalance of representation to sit on something as so important as this legislature. Like again, I said, you know, we are the checks and balances of the government. And so I'm still not convinced at this point that a part-time legislature would work. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse and Senator Tello. Okay, we can move on to the final question. According to the 2020 Uniform Crime Report published by the Guam Police Department, crimes against businesses rose 28% when compared to the previous year. What specific policy initiatives would you pursue to promote a safer Guam? This is for Ken Leon Guerrero and Harvey Agna. We'll start with Ken.
One of the things I have been campaigning for 10 years was to dramatically increase the number of drug detection dogs within Government of Guam's public safety divisions. I'm relieved to see that finally, after 10 years, we've added 4, but it's not enough, because the majority of the crimes that we're experiencing here on Guam trace their roots back to drugs and drug addiction. When we have the price of drugs cheaper than a bag of groceries, we have a serious problem. And the fact that 3 different administrations that I have gone forward to with this proposal have basically ignored it is a problem. When we have drugs being dealt openly in Government of Guam offices and agencies, one of the things I would require or create a policy for is random drug dog patrols going through Government of Guam offices and agencies. This happens on the military bases all the time. And that would help stop the level of drug dealing and use within the Government of Guam itself. And that would be a huge step. The more we can do to prevent drugs from getting on this island, and there's only 3 ways they come in: the airport, the commercial port, and mail. We should have drug dogs there 24/7 going through all the packages, containers, and suitcases.
Thank you. Harvey?
Okay, you got me here on a topic that I can talk a long time about, but I'm tired of opening up the Post every morning and seeing nothing about not just crime against business, but sex crime. It's clear that we need to expand our police force, and maybe we don't have a population base here in Guam to do it. We need to be creative in our thinking and look to recruit criminology college graduates from the mainland, bring them here to Guam on a contract, put them up, familiarize them with our geography and our laws, and get them out on the streets. I think we need to get back to old-fashioned policing. We need to see cops on the beat. No more riding around in air-conditioned cars. Let's get cops out walking in our malls, in our villages, village policing, policemen assigned to our villages that get to know everybody, that get to know the characters that are around, that get to know the houses that are dealing. But it's clear we need to, you know, if there's one area of Guam that needs an injection, it's GPD. They do a good job now, but there's just not enough of them, and we're continuing to lose them in spite of the 20% or the 18% raise that we got. So if there's one thing that really irks me is that we really need to beef up our police and get back to some of the some of the basics in policing. We need to see the police on the street. We need to see them in our neighborhoods. And, we also need to, I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent here. We need to start looking at the penalties for some of the crimes that are around there. I see so many people out on pretrial release or people not being convicted, so many plea bargains. We need to look at things that will reduce the amount of crime. Thank you. I went over time.
Thank you so much. Already, thank you to all the candidates for participating in today's forum. This will now end the question portion of the forum, and we'll give each candidate 1 minute to state a closing response and explain why a young professional should vote for you. So we will follow the same order as the introduction, starting with Bistra.
Thank you for the opportunity. First and foremost, when we want to talk to the youth in business, I want to address the issue that owning and operating a business is something that only a business owner knows how to do. And when we have more business owners in legislature, then we can address the issues that are plaguing our economy. So I do encourage you to take a look who is on the ballot that does have some form of small business experience. As a small business owner, I do believe that I bring a lot to the table as far as passion about resolving the problems and knowledge and skill. Thank you.
Thank you. Shirley Samabini Young.
There you go. Thank you. Thank you for hosting this and for having all of us here. I will encourage our young professional business folks to, again, review all the background, the historical performance of the candidates. I encourage you to visit my website, www.senatormabini.com, where it'll outline my history of work in legislation as well as my work in the public and private sector. I will continue to advocate. I am a self-proclaimed evangelist in workforce development. I want to help our business prepare young and old for careers. I want to help our families understand that there are great opportunities in various jobs here in Guam that they may not be aware of. I am encouraging accountability in our community, affordable living, stronger drug enforcement, and a smaller and smarter government through more efficient Guam departments and workers, as well as looking at what kind of part-time legislature would work for Guam. And so I encourage you to continue doing well in our business community. Thank you.
Thank you. Harvey Egna.
Well, first of all, thank you once again for hosting this forum. I think it was a really great opportunity to have us all answer your questions and pitch ourselves a little bit. The focus I feel for the next legislature is the economy and crime. And as far as the economy, we need to get a handle on transparency in our local government. And we do that by expanding our audit function, giving more independence to our audit function, and running GovGuam by our auditors. Secondly, we really need to get a handle on crime. People are really concerned about that. I mentioned I have 3 teenage daughters. I'm really concerned about crime, and so are the average Guamanian out there. And these are the 2 things that we really need to get a handle on, and what I would like to focus on if I'm fortunate enough to get your support in this election.
Thank you. Senator Joanne Brown.
Thank you again for the opportunity to be able to engage with all of you this morning. Certainly my fellow candidates that are running, what an impressive group to be able to run for the legislature. I'm very optimistic that if we get Republican leadership, I think you're going to see the kind of shift in direction where it's not about the government, it's more about what do we do to provide the support for our community so our community can thrive, our families can thrive, our economy and our businesses can thrive. And it's a total different style of leadership. Like I said, I ran again after all these years, never intending to, because I was so dissatisfied, still am, with the current Democratic leadership in the Guam Legislature, and most definitely the administration. It's all about them and it's not about our people. So I hope all of you continue to be more engaged. I mean, I think I want to definitely see more participation. I'm bringing this out because I see the lack of, maybe you share among yourselves, but in terms of influencing the political dynamic, if you want to see those changes, you need to be vocal and you need to be engaged. This is not something that we running for office can spoon feed. It's something that the public needs to raise its voice and its presence. And like I said, I've come back after all these years seeing a lack of the level of engagement I used to see from the private sector. And I'd like to see more awareness, more participation, and more presence. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be able to talk with you this morning.
Thank you. Ken Leon Guerrero.
For those of you who've been following me over the years, you know that I've been a big champion of trying to get more younger people involved in the government, because the government is a big organization that unfortunately has more control over our lives than we would like it to be. And when you have a whole bunch of old people like me and a lot of other people who are sitting in positions of power, we are occupying seats that should be occupied by the younger people. So when you vote for me, know that I'm going to continue my efforts to see to it that you younger people get a stronger representation in the legislature, and I will encourage more of you to take your hands on the reins of power directly, as you will see in the upcoming voter initiative process that will be coming to villages near you soon.
Thank you. Senator Tello Tridegui.
Well, thank you so much. It's been certainly a pleasure to be here today to speak with you and answer the questions that you had. By the way, they were great questions. You know, it focused, it was a wide variety on focusing on different topic matters. But I believe, you know, as young professionals, you're looking at supporting individuals that will support a business-friendly environment, while at the same time protecting our environment as well as our natural resources. I've been one that, you know me, the tell it to Tello slogan and expect results has always been my motto. I've stayed true to be loyal to the people of Guam, and again, asking the hard questions, not being afraid to speak up and, you know, be part of a solution for our people. And the youth is one of the most important things that we have to remember, and that everything we do today is going to affect tomorrow for the next generation. And we always have to keep that in mind. So I thank you so much. Please go to the website. You can see some of the work I've done, and I appreciate the time that you've given us today. Sujus Masi and maraming salamat po. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Chris Dueñas.
Thank you very much. And I want to join Senator Brown in saying that I think you've really got today an opportunity to see some very dynamic and wonderful candidates on the Republican side of the ballot. You know, when I'm looking at Cam Lorenzo and I'm looking at the GYP emblem in the back, I can't help but see Be Connected. And I think that one of the answers I shared with you during this forum is in order to focus, and then focus is really one of the main keys of my platform. You see it everywhere on my literature and the like. I want to focus on making sure we extend out and expand business opportunities so that our Guam Young Professionals can stay on Guam. The second thing I'm going to focus on, and we talked about affordable housing, it wasn't my question, but I want to close with this. One of the fastest ways to get affordable housing online is to get infrastructure put on the land trust properties that are already prepared for subdivision. And the reason why is inventory. You get families who are eligible now to move into those properties, and inventory opens up. It's more opportunities for rents to come down, for things to become more reasonable. And that's what I'm going to focus on, making sure we have opportunities for our people to stay and to have a job. Thank you.
Thank you. And last but not least, we have Jesse Lujan.
Oh, thank you very much again for having us on this morning. Great panel. Thank you, fellow Republicans. You know, families all over Guam are making sacrifices and adapting to survive. You know, the emergency funding, unfortunately, reality of a lot of families are leaving Guam, greener pastures. Emergency funding provided both by the federal government and local government programs have been lifesavers to our community. But more must be done. It is time for us elected leaders to come together and put politics aside. With $300 million still available, we must act prudently and urgently to provide relief to help rebuild this economy, our economy. And we need to act with urgency. And again, I'm ready to get to work on day one. I see the GYP and the Chamber as resources, and I will do all I can to help rebuild our economy back to what it was and should be, and continuous prosperity. Thank you very much.
Alrighty, thank you guys so much. That wraps up your statements for why a young professional should vote for you. I'm going to hand it back to Charlie for some closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Ione. Thank you, senators, and thank you, candidates, for your participation today, and thank you to our attendees as well. We do have some time, and if our listening audience and attendees would not mind, we're going to open up the floor to questions from the listening audience. We'll give a minute break for the attendees to do so. There is a question tab that you can pose your questions to. We'll go to mute everyone for now and give it a minute. Cam will post up the minute time marker when we open up the mics again. The response time for the candidates will be 1 minute. Okay, we do have a question from Maria Leon Guerrero. We'll go ahead and unmute her now. Maria?
Hi, my question is regarding healthcare. So I know I'm the president for the Guam Women's Chamber, and one of the issues that we have for our members, we do have a group healthcare plan that we were able to get, but the bottom line is that it's very expensive for our members to avail of healthcare through that, and most of them, if they were not able to obtain healthcare, through their spouse or other employers at a lower cost, they're only buying this healthcare if they really need it. But essentially, my issue is that for small business owners, health insurance coverage is a big issue and a big cost, and many of them go without. So, what are some of your ideas about how we can help this population gain access to critical healthcare?
Thank you for that question, Maria. We'll go ahead with the order again with Bistra Mendiola first.
Thank you. That question hits home really hard for me as well, because after my husband left a job with a health insurance to start a business, we lost that insurance, and I also approached different chambers of commerce to see what kind of health coverage we could obtain. And unfortunately, it was for a family of 4. It was roughly $1,700 at the time. Interestingly enough, back in 2018, I attended a business forum where the current governor attended as well. And when I raised the question, later on she approached me personally. She told me that she's working on an initiative that will provide a group healthcare insurance for the folks that are underinsured or uninsured. Unfortunately, I'm still struggling to see how that's going to go, but probably the major thing that we can do is combine the uninsured, the underinsured, probably get them together with the MIP program and create a large pool of people that can obtain a lower cost. I think this is a critical issue, and it should have been done with the advent of COVID. we saw the medical disparity because of underinsured people, and we should not delay this.
Thank you. Sam Mabini Young.
I'm a strong proponent of prevention care. I know there was a point in my life where healthcare coverage was a challenge, and fortunately, because you know, for me, at least in my family, we put good health conditions as a priority for us, so that we wouldn't be overly concerned with health insurance coverage. Now, of course, there's we can't prevent accidents or whatnot, but the point being is that a lot of our high health insurance costs is tied to the risks that these companies face when it comes to coverage. So I believe community-based health education is one, to help dealing with prevention, and then second is bringing to the table all our local insurance companies, and then have them part of the discussion to address, give suggestions back to us. What can we do, or what we can do to help them reduce their costs that will be transferred into savings for the average individual and the average family. Thank you.
Thank you. Harvey Egna. Harvey, I think you're paused. Okay, we'll give Harvey some time. We'll move on to Ken Leon Guerrero.
That's an excellent question. It's about an hour answer in and of itself, but the short version is we need to go to a universal health care plan. When Hawaii did that, they saw dramatic improvements in the quality of health of their people, which helped drive down the cost of people. During the Obamacare years, while other states were reporting 20, 30, 40% increases in the cost of health care, Hawaii was reporting single digits, and that goes back to a universal health care plan that was introduced in the mid-70s. If we were to introduce such a plan right now, we would eliminate a lot of problems here on Guam. One of them is the fact that 75% of the utilization of Guam Memorial Hospital is by people who are underinsured or have no insurance, and they use their emergency room as the primary care physician of last resort. And that drives up the healthcare cost all across the spectrum. Everybody suffers. I know people have government of Guam health insurance that can't even use it now because the deductibles are so high that by the time they have enough health care to use the deductible, it cycles over. This is
that's your time. Senator Joanne Brown.
Well, I think we certainly need to look at what's involved with the cost of healthcare, because this is not an easy question. I wish we could raise the, magic wand and make it go away. But a lot of the questions you're asking are actually directed to the private sector, that's charging these high costs. Even in the government of Guam, every year, the one thing that goes up is health insurance. I pay $160 more this year than I did last year on top of my government contribution. With my deductible for health insurance. So I think we need to look at that collectively on how can we make it more affordable, because it's affecting everyone. It's affecting people in the private sector. It's affecting people in the public sector. And that's one thing guaranteed every year that I have seen is the continued cost of healthcare. So I think from a policy standpoint, we don't want to what degree the government's going to get involved in private business, but at the same time, a lot of the questions you're asking about increased costs is directly coming from the private sector. And really, what is the cost there, and how much can we afford as a community to be able to get the basic needs and the basic health care? And I certainly appreciate Senator Mabini on responding to that. A lot has to do with preventative health care, which is something we desperately need here on the island. But thank you. I do have to step out. I have another commitment, but thank you. I enjoyed joining all of you this morning.
Thank you for your participation, Senator Brown. We'll move on to Senator Telo Taitagui.
Thank you for the question, and I believe Ken was right when he said that this is about an hour discussion to discuss this. But we all also know that it's not just healthcare, but affordable healthcare. The premiums are skyrocketing if you were going into a smaller pool, but a larger pool will give you premiums that are more affordable, like the Realtors Association. They finally got together and pulled together to have a healthcare group insurance policy that was a little bit more affordable than if you were by yourself as a small business. When I had my companies, it was very difficult for myself to get healthcare. And I think one of the initiatives that I believe it was at the time Speaker Wampat was looking at Micronesia, well, it's like universal healthcare, but within Micronesia, to bring a larger pool to make it affordable. I think this is something that we need to look into because many people are struggling. And of course, an excellent comment with regards to preventive care. That's one of the largest things that we have to start investing in, and investing into the nonprofit organizations that are pulling these programs to outreach programs. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator Tello. Senator Chris Duenas.
Thank you very much. This is a great question, and I think our colleagues have covered a lot of ground here. One of the things that I think is important, and I know that from the Guam, young professionals point of view, and even the chamber, you need information before you can move forward, right? One of the things the legislature is supposed to do, and I hope we do more of if I'm elected in the 37th, is have more opportunities for roundtables and to bring in the business sector to say, how do we maximize the use of millions of dollars of money, resources that we're using now under MIP and leverage that? I think what it comes down to is insurance. In order for insurances to even issue insurance, they use the actuarial, and that's the unknown. When you don't have an actuarial for the pool, then you have to, derive the information. And I think that's the next legislative move, is to bring all of these, great minds together and say, if we're going to do this universal healthcare, how do we leverage current government resources and have a private partnership as well in order to do this? And that's based on facts and information. We need an actuarial for the entire pool. Thank you.
Senator Chris. Jesse Lujan.
Yeah, thank you very much for this question. As a matter of fact, just a couple months ago, I had the opportunity to visit a couple of the health insurance providers here in Guam, and that was the question I posed basically is the affordability of health insurance. And one of the things that they told me basically, and it's not just one insurance company, but a couple of insurance companies that told me that they were asked by the administration, the government of Guam, to help craft a universal healthcare regime for Guam. Now, how that's going to look, I don't know exactly, but I'm optimistic. And maybe what the legislature should do is maybe the chair of the committee on insurance and healthcare should probably call a roundtable and see where that's at, if it's at anywhere at this point. And likewise, get the conversation going, at least in the legislative side, to see, the feasibility and what that's going to look like. Because, of course, as has been mentioned over and over again, the accessibility and the affordability of healthcare is a great challenge for not just our folks here, but indigents, folks that come from the outer islands that don't have health insurance.
Thank you, Jesse.
Our government. Thank you.
Harvey Egna.
I'm sorry, I was away from my desk for the question. Can you repeat the question?
Maria Leon Guerrero, one of our attendees, posed a question regarding affordable health care for small businesses on island. How would
I think this is an issue that everybody's wrestling with. I'm not sure it should be only the legislature wrestling with it, but it should be businesses as well as the insurance industry together in the room. It's driven by risk and cost. And in the end, a lot of the plans, I know Ken mentioned I came in at the tail end of what Ken was saying, and he mentioned Hawaii's program. I lived in Hawaii for quite a few years and somewhat familiar with it. But, in the end, somebody needs to pay for it. And it's a matter of who's going to pay for it and what data supports how much what's going to drive the cost. But it's not just, the legislature. Just involving the legislature means the taxpayers are going to pay for it, and where's that going to come from? But is business willing to pay a portion of it? Is government? And what portion is going to come from, the people themselves? So, these medical care is very, very expensive. I know I'm going through an issue with my wife right now that is recently diagnosed with a very serious illness, and we have insurance, and the copay is 20%, which is not insignificant.
Thank you, Harvey.
Difficult issue.
for one more question, and a very good one. We have tourists coming back to Guam. What can the legislature do to clean up our island of debris and unsightly abandoned vehicles and the like? We'll go back to the order, starting with Bisha.
In my opinion, the legislature can provide support to the mayor's offices and also provide a heavily incentivized program for private companies that can tackle the debris collection. There are many different types of debris, not just cars, but we also have white goods that are just being disposed of because there are either no collections at the residence, or certain landlords simply refuse to provide trash collection. I do know that currently you can request for removal of certain debris directly with the Department of Public Works, but certain landlords are basically refusing to pay for that. So maybe if we come up with a legislation that provides and engages the landlord, that may be one avenue to resolve this.
Thank you, Bisha.
Thank you.
Samabini Young.
I believe that we should work with the private sector and possibly doing outsourcing of some of the critical areas that our tourists would be impacted. And one of them would be our public facilities, like our restrooms. And I know I believe there was a point when that was outsourced, but we should do that. I mean, imagine Guam having one of the best restrooms, you know, in the Western Pacific, public restrooms, that is. I mean, that would be an incredible improvement. Working with Animal Humane Services, dealing with our stray animals, that would be critical. I know that there's a lot of nonprofit groups that are addressing that. Holding businesses and individuals accountable for their property, so that that they do look presentable, feasible, so that our tourists are not impacted there. And then last but not least, I'm working with our homeless coalition, so that, because I know that would be something disturbing for many of our tourists to see here in Guam. We should not be having these issues. We could work together with the private sector. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Harvey Egna.
Thank you. You know, we try to make ourselves, we try to give the perception of being a 5-star destination. 2 weeks ago, I took my family on a sunny Sunday afternoon to the Fort Nuestra de Soledad Park there in Umatic. And I heard the words that I dread from my son: "Dad, I need to use the restroom." So my daughter took my son over to the restroom, and lo and behold, the gates were locked. The beautifully painted restroom that we couldn't use. So she trotted him down behind the restroom into the tall grass there, and lo and behold, there were 5 or 6 Korean tourists squatting in the grass. And I was personally embarrassed as a resident of Guam to see that. And I wonder how those tourists felt. And I thought, and I said to my wife, well, you know, they're discussing putting what, $30 or $50 million into some park in Ipao Beach, but we can't keep the restrooms open for our tourists. You know, what are they going to say when they go back home, that they had to squat in the grass, but they're staying in a 5-star hotel in Tumon? So I think we got to get back to, and maybe I answered your question a little bit of a roundabout. We got to get back to basics. We got to keep our restrooms open for people.
Thank you. Ken Leon Guerrero.
Yeah, this is a reoccurring theme here on the island. You know, people come to Guam to experience tropical paradise. They don't come to Guam to go to a digital media park at Ipao. And at Ipao, the bathrooms are locked more often than they're not. I have run into Japanese tourists there in the bushes at Ipao Beach, let alone around the island. So we need to have more public restrooms maintained by private companies, because the government of Guam can't even maintain a static swimming pool. They can't maintain restrooms around the island. Tourists come to Guam looking for tropical paradise, and the last thing we offer them is tropical paradise. That and the trash alongside the roads.
Thank you, Ken. Senator Tello Taitigui.
Well, thank you for that question. I know that GYP within its agency has what's called destination management, and funding is set aside to clean up areas, to provide assistance to the parks that are out there. And I think also it's important to engage our mayors to provide the support they need. Our mayors are starting to become more of an influence on their villages when it comes to beautification. And we want to encourage the mayors to do so. I think the biggest thing that I would support, which I've done before, I introduced legislation in the 35th, is to provide more funding for security cameras. Security cameras are not only a deterrent, but it also helps monitor these areas where we're short in manpower. They've incorporated this type of camera system when monitoring down in Seta Bay on some of the towers that they have for GTA and Docomo. So I think this is something that we can also do. I mean, from one end of the island to the other, we should invest in more surveillance cameras to monitor what we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Tello. Senator Chris Dueñas.
Thank you for the question. I think this goes back to our definition of insanity, trying to change something by doing the same thing over and over. I do believe eventually we need, and maybe this next legislature will be the one, to create a real paradigm shift. And the fact is that during the budget processing, we need to set benchmarks. We need to set expectations to where a certain amount of cleanliness and a certain amount of acceptable public spaces and working with the private sector is set. If those benchmarks aren't reached, then we move towards privatizing them. The fact of the matter is that these are your tax dollars. And when the guests come to Guam, the money that's provided for is your money because it comes into the government of Guam. So really the people are the bosses. And what it comes down to is I think that we hopefully in the 37th will really make a paradigm shift in this area and set expectations higher and hold execution accountable.
Thank you, Senator Dueñas. Jesse Lujan.
Thank you very much. You know, as we speak, we have thousands of our residents who are unemployed or underemployed, not because of it's any fault of their own. I think that this was brought about, of course, by the pandemic. I think the government of Guam should create temporary jobs program, a program that pays people to beautify our island and to be neighborhood watch representatives would be extremely beneficial. We can help clean up and maintain our parks and beaches and help make our neighborhoods safer, while at the same time providing temporary jobs and paychecks to people who need it. The program should only be temporary though, and provide a bridge for people who can't find employment in the private sector. And again, we have hundreds of millions of dollars available in ARP funds that could help fund this thing and justifiably could be used for such measure. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. We have time for just one more question and then we will conclude today's forum. This question is posed by Janae Ugin, and it is, how do you plan to help GRTA? And we will start again with Bistra.
You're referring to the Guam Regional Transport Authority, correct? Hello?
Correct, yes.
I was raised in a country where we had a very, very robust public transportation system. It took many years to get to that point. I do believe, though, that in Guam, we should probably do a public-private partnership because the government itself so far has demonstrated that it cannot operate that vital service. So if the government has not been able to do so, we should really look into providing incentives for companies that want to invest in a robust transportation system. It doesn't have to be a big bus. I've seen many vans that can operate very efficiently, and with current technologies, we can definitely tackle the scheduling issue. It's been done in many other countries. So if we examine what works and what does not work, we can probably come up with a plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Bistra. Samabini Young.
We're referring to the Guam Regional Transportation Authority, correct?
That is correct, yes.
All right. Well, first off, we need to support the partnership that exists right now with a private company that's running the public transportation system that we have. But what we're not doing is looking at the data that they're collecting as far as how many people are actually getting on the bus or off the bus, which routes are working, which ones are not. And they may or may not be doing that, but we collectively and working with the legislature, we need to look at that kind of information to determine what works, what doesn't work, where budgets can be adjusted. We should also look at like what Hawaii, I believe, is doing, where the public transit system is actually supporting the school bus or the school students, to and fro. And then last but not least, I'd like to see incentives for businesses to encourage their workers to use these systems, the public transportation, should they be good routes. And we should also look at maybe potential electric vehicles that many regions are now using to help reduce the cost to the government. Thank you.
Thank you, Stan. Harvey Egner.
Thank you. I think because of the the lack of population density in certain areas of Guam, what we should do is we should take a step back and really focus for the time being our public transportation resources on the three densest population villages and really look to perfect what they do in those villages and then expand as appropriate from there. Look at the three most populous northern villages and really come up with a conceived plan, a good schedule of services to service the folks that live in those villages and probably work actually in close proximity to those villages, and then expand as we need out from those areas.
Thank you, Harvey. Ken Leon Guerrero. Sorry, Ken, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. The first thing we need to do is set up a public-private partnership like the one that Hawaii uses to run the bus system there in Hawaii. Because I was on Governor Calvo's mass transit task force, I put forward a plan working with others to give Guam a world-class mass transit system equal to what Hawaii has, and it got tabled for political reasons. So that's why we need to get government out of it, because as long as there's a cash flow, the government's going to find a way to profit from it. And that's not the intent of mass transit. The intent of mass transit is to lower the cost of living here on Guam for people getting to and from work. And a well-run mass transit system gives a $90 a day pay raise to people who work in Guam's economy. That is work worth doing. And we had a plan to give us one, but it got tabled for political reasons. We can't afford that any longer.
Thank you, Ken. Senator Telo Taitagui.
Well, thank you for that question. It was one of the questions you brought up earlier about privatizing, outsourcing, and public-private partnerships. And the question too was asked, which one or choose what agency that you would change. And actually, my answer was Guam Mass Transit. Because the government has failed to provide the reliable transportation to our community to meet their needs. Getting to work on time, scheduled doctor's appointments, and now with the gas price rising, the option for affordable transportation is not available. So definitely I would move in the direction of privatizing Guam Mass Transit, a public-private partnership. I think the government needs to do its share too to provide this type of transportation to our community.
Thank you, Senator Taitagui. Senator Chris Duenas.
Thank you for the question. Recently at the forum that was put on by the tourism industry, one of the #1 complaints from the guests returning to Guam was the issue of the trolley not being in service. This is not rocket science. And I see the trolley running now. And I will tell you that it's so important. And I do agree with this discussion on the public-private partnership. What's interesting is I miss Selva Bauta. I think he was really online with that. He has brought millions of dollars in to the transit authority, and now is perfectly the time to marry that with the private sector, to use all that institutional knowledge. Like I said, the trolley's running all the time now. And I see guests on there and they're happy. When you go up to Kmart, so many of them had to scramble to get a taxi or do something like that. And now the red trolley is running between all of the hotels. People are happy and it's affordable for them to jump on it. You know, you can do that and duplicate that in the internal parts of the villages, have solid routes and make it reliable. But now's the time for the public-private partnership.
Thank you, Senator Chris. And Jesse Lujan.
Hey, thank you very much. You know, recently, well, maybe not as recent, but 6 months ago, the Congress had passed this massive infrastructure bill and signed by the president. There are millions of dollars there available for Guam's GRTA. I don't know exactly if they know about it, but there are millions of dollars available. We need to ensure that we utilize this money to improve and expand GRTA. It is, of course, an important agency and needs to be supported, whether it be, you know, more routing, expanding roads, and things of that nature. And I know there's a big component there for electric buses and all that. But that massive bill was passed and signed into law, and millions are available for Guam GRTA.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our forum for today. We'd like to thank our Republican candidates for joining us, and we encourage the listening audience to join us and everyone else on the call for our Democratic Forum next week, Thursday, August the 4th. We kindly ask that you RSVP with the Guam Chamber of Commerce by calling 472-6311 or emailing at info@guamchamber.com.gu. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Adios.
Be safe
Have a
out
great
there.
Great day, everybody. Stay safe.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
That GY.